Well, here we are back again in Mendocino, floating up the big river. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning. The fog's out. Oh man, it is so nice. And it's just before the wind kicks up a little bit, and we have to fight this canoe back out the river. But this is my vacation. Barbara's holding the camera, and this is about, and she just sneezed. This is about the early days of me making jewelry. And by the way, the tide's coming in, so we hardly have to paddle, and we're moving right along. It was like, I don't know, 1974, maybe 75. I'm thinking 75. That I moved in next door to Lauren Gramlich. Back then it was Larry Gramlich, and he was a jeweler. And I set up my little studio, and I wanted to do ceramics. So I set up my little studio, but then of course I didn't have a kiln, and I didn't have the money to buy one. So, I just kind of fiddled around and just did what I did. And I was living in this little cabin way out in the woods, and I was paying $35 a month for rent and $11 for utilities. And by the time I got about a year in, I was 7 months behind. I was that broke. And my next door neighbor, Larry, he said, "Nick, you should come over. I'll show you how to make some jewelry, and you can make some money." And I was like, no, I'm an artist. I don't want to prostitute myself making jewelry. So, a couple months went by, and I had a girlfriend at the time. It was Christmas, and I didn't have any money to buy her anything. So I asked Larry if I could go into his shop and make some jewelry, a piece of jewelry for her. And so he says, "Oh yeah, you've been watching me for months now. You know what to do." So he just basically sat me down at his bench and walked out and left me on my own. And so I made this nice little piece of jewelry, and it took about half an hour maybe. And I finished it off and took it into him and his wife, and they kind of freaked out. They went, "Wow, this is really a nice design. This is like, we've not seen anything like this out in the craft show world." And I said, "Well, thank you. Yeah, that's really good. It's a present for Lori." And Lauren said, "Well, you know how much this is worth?" And I went, "I'm an artist, and I don't really care how much it's worth. It's not worth anything as far as I'm concerned. It's a gift." He says, $50. And I went, "Whoa, $50 in a half an hour? Oh man." I was bowled over. And I was just like, "Really? I can make $50 in a half hour?" So that was it. I was sold. I went back and rounded up about $200, and I bought. Back then, silver was going for like $1.80 an ounce, and for $200, I bought some basic jewelry tools and about 30 or 40 ounces of silver, which was a lot of silver. And I started making jewelry. And here's some of my earlier pieces, pictures. I decided, Lauren also went and did craft shows. So I said, I asked him what shows I should do. And he said, "Well, let's just start you out doing the show at Sacramento State College." So I booked the show. It was like $15 to book the show. and I struggled to come up with the $15. Um, and then so, I worked all winter. Probably came up with about 50 or 60 different pieces that I could display. Built myself a nice little display cabinet and a table and a couple other things that I was gonna need. And I decided, okay, and so I think the show was in April or May or something like that. And I was like, well, okay, well, let's go do the show. So, but my friend Jimma Abbott, and you can look him up on the internet because, man, he has got some spectacular jewelry. He, uh, he kind of said, okay, you're going to do that show and I'm going to do it too. Why don't you just set up next to me and I'll show you how to do it? And it's that whole thing about when the student's ready, the mentor will show up, and that's exactly what happened. Jimma set me up right next to him at this show. There was this little funky show. It had rained the day before, so they brought the show indoors, and we were right next to the cafeteria, and I didn't know what to expect. And so what happened was, as soon as they opened the doors, a horde of people came in. And at that point in my life, I was really shy. I mean, extremely shy. And I was having a hard time. And Jimma just kind of, you know, walked me through the process of how to talk to people. And within an hour or so, I started to feel a little more comfortable. I mean, the fact that I was standing behind my booth and I could, back up and not have people in my face and yet still talk to them. And the other fact that I was talking about my creative process. And that weekend, I made $235 and I was rich. I was like, whoa, this is the life for me. And so that kind of set the whole stage. I took that $235. I booked about half a dozen more shows throughout the summer. I went back to my studio. I made more jewelry and I did that for the next 35 years. Went to craft shows pretty much every weekend. Came back Monday morning. I'd be back at the bench making more jewelry. And then after a while, I started charging more for my jewelry and making less jewelry, which was a good thing. And here's some photos of my more recent work. Now, what happened was is that uh, 35 years later, I'm still making jewelry, and I'm getting kind of tired, and my hands start shaking, and my fine motor skills kind of started deteriorating. And by the way, I had always worked on these little dinky tables, making jewelry and in these little cramped quarters. Um, so I decided that when I built my studio, and you've seen the workshop side of my studio, some of you have seen the creative side of my studio, um, I decided to build the ultimate jeweler bench, which here's a couple pictures of it. And once I built that bench, here comes the seagulls, thinking we got food for them. Once I built that bench, I literally sat down and probably made another 20 or 30 pieces of jewelry, all in gold. Here's some of the pieces that I made. And then my hands got pretty shaky, and I had to retire my jewelry business. But I can't do fine motor skills, but I can turn handles, and that's when the machine shop part came in, and it was perfect. I can turn handles all day long, and it works just fine. This is Nick Collier. Check it out. Oops, there's more. All right, well, we just had a harbor seal surface a second ago. There he is right below us, right here. See him? He's just kind of floating along, going underneath the canoe, coming around. Where'd it go?
I don't know. I'm a little nervous.
Oh, no, it's not going to do anything. Buddy, how's it going? He's just coming over to check us out. He's right at the point of the canoe. Can you see him?
I saw.
He says, you're kind of weird because you're not paddling. Yeah. Hey, buddy. It's like, you're not that interesting.
Not a whale. That's a harbor seal? Not
I think
seal.
so. Huh?
Sea lion's real huge.
I'm not sure.
What did we think the one yesterday
Well, it was the same thing. Well, harbor seal. I'm sure of it. But I think they're also called sea lions. But don't ask me. I'm no zoologist. And then we're just floating along here. The tide's coming in, and I don't think we've done 20 strokes since we left. We definitely can't see it, but we can hear a heron rookery up there in the trees somewhere, if you'll listen.